gorgeous. Welcome back to What You Water. My name is Miranda, and I am very excited because today we are going to be beginning our first series on the channel. This series is going to be talking about self-therapy. During this video, I'm going to be suggesting some journal prompts for you. These are to help you have a better understanding of yourself emotionally, to see where you're at, and to see if you're ready to do this kind of work. I would split these journal prompts up over a few days or even a few weeks. Please do not feel like you have to force yourself into a huge emotional journaling deep dive if that's not what's best for you. If you love journaling and you love writing about things all at once, then go for it. Pay attention to your body, pay attention to how you're feeling, and do what is best for you. If you start to feel anxious or overwhelmed, step away and come back to it when you're feeling a bit better. If you would like to pause the video as we go along and journal, I welcome you to do so. If you would like to listen to the whole video and then journal later, that's awesome too. The material will still be here regardless of whatever you want to do. As always, go at your own pace. Okay, let's get started. All right, firstly, I want to talk about what exactly is self-therapy. Some of you watching may already know what it is, but for those of you who don't, self-therapy, as defined by Google, is a type of informal psychological intervention that involves self-help strategies to manage mental health challenges. To put it into not Google terms, it is a tool that can be used outside of therapy if you already have a therapist. It can be used in between therapy sessions. It can be used when you don't have a therapist. It is pretty much exactly as it sounds, self-therapy. Personally, I've found it extremely useful because I have very low resources. Let's just be honest. In the United States, a therapist can cost you anywhere from $100 to $500 a session, especially if you don't have insurance. And some of those numbers are with insurance. It can get very expensive to take care of yourself. When you don't have access to money in a society that is built on money, you have to get creative on how to take care of yourself. So this is one of those things that can help you take care of yourself when you don't have access to the stuff that other people have access to. Or when you just are in between. However, it is very important to remember that self-therapy is not a replacement for therapy. It is a tool, it is not a solution. In my introduction video, I talked about how I've been to therapy on and off since I was 17 years old. And the reason I had to go on and off is because I did not have access to health insurance, or I was unemployed, or both. I currently find myself in a position where I don't have a therapist. I use self-therapy to maintain what I did learn when I was in therapy so that I don't regress, to continue to help myself, to continue to grow. The way that I'm choosing to break down this episode is we're just going to go through a few questions you can ask yourself to see if this tool is right for you, if it's a right fit for right now, or if it's something that maybe you can think about in the future. You should always be honest with yourself, and if you find yourself in a position where you need outside help, then you should absolutely seek a professional. Please don't feel like you have to work on yourself alone. Healing cannot occur without community. Question 1. Am I ready to work on myself? The first time I went to therapy, I was 17. I went for 3 weeks and I had a terrible experience. I was in high school and I was having some pretty dark thoughts, and I got sent to a therapist who loved the sound of his own voice. He never let me talk and he shut me down pretty bad. I told my mom I never wanted to go again, and I didn't for 2 years. And then I had something pretty intense happen at my first waitressing job when I was 19 years old. And after that, I was like, okay, I need to talk to someone. I got really lucky and I found the most amazing woman I've ever met in my entire life, and she changed my life. She was willing to see me on a sliding scale where I paid anywhere from $0 to $20, most of the time $0, and I saw her for 5 years. The first time in my life I had access to someone who I felt like genuinely was interested in helping me. However, I was not ready to receive that help. I spent the first 1.5 years just talking. I would come in, I'd sit on the couch, and I would talk about what happened during the week. I saw her once a week, and I would be there for like an hour to an hour and a half, and I would just yap. I never once touched on the reason that I started going in the first place, because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to dig into what had happened. I wasn't ready to expose those raw nerves. And I was a little afraid to tell her what had happened. I felt a lot of shame around how long it had gone on, and I was blaming myself for a lot of it. I was blaming myself for a lot of what had happened. But you know what? She didn't push me. She did not push me. She recognized that I needed to talk and needed someone to be gentle with me and someone to listen, because I never really had someone to listen before. She just let me talk. Looking back on it now, I mean, to be fair, I was 19 years old, 19 to 20. The person who is sitting before you today would not have just yapped about nothing for a year and a half. I absolutely would have gone in and been like, hey, I'm traumatized, please help me. But I was, little Miranda needed that. I will forever be grateful to her for her patience and for her kindness. So while I wouldn't do that today, I don't regret it. I do remember though, when I realized that I was tired of talking about nothing. When it kind of hit me that I had a therapist and I was not utilizing her to her full potential. So I talked for a year and a half, and then I left for probably about a year. When I came back, I was absolutely ready to cut the bullshit. I was in a lot of pain. I was scared all the time. I was anxious. I was hypervigilant. I was constantly thinking that something bad was going to happen to me. And I was so angry. I was so mad all the time. And I was mad at everyone. And my drug usage was at an all-time high at that time. So I came into her office and I sat down with her and I said, hey, look, we need to talk about what happened to me. We need to talk about what it did to me. And I'm pretty sure it stems from my relationship with my parents. And she just kind of looked at me. And then she smiled. And she said, okay, let's get started. She was just waiting for me that whole time. And I'm just like, damn, girl, you're good. You're good. From that day forward, I realized that it was not going to help me to avoid the shit. Whatever the pain, whatever the trauma, you have to be able to look it in the eye. And you have to be able to work with it to work through it. That can be so terrifying. But it's only terrifying because it's unknown. Once you get through to the other side of it, there is freedom and there is peace. While healing can be a very rewarding process, it can also be a very uncomfortable process. So when you're thinking about starting something like this, it's important to ask yourself the questions that we're asking here today. Am I ready? Am I ready to face the discomfort that might come up during this process? Am I ready to face the uncomfortable feelings, the uncomfortable stuff from my past? Am I truly wanting to process what has happened in my life? Are you in a place where you can work on yourself by yourself? If you are struggling to work through your feelings, if you are overwhelmed with the thought of working on yourself, then self-therapy might not be the tool for you. Nothing is more isolating than feeling like there is no one willing or available to help you when the pressure of life is coming down on your shoulders. If just the words self-therapy make you feel lonely or emotional, then this might not be the time for self-therapy. This might be the time to seek community. So I'm gonna put some different resources in the description of this video for different support groups for your specific needs. I understand that asking for help can be difficult, so seek out help in a way that works for you. If you are someone who is in between therapists or taking a small break from therapy, you've been to therapy and you just want to continue your mental health journey, then self-therapy might be the tool for you. I do believe that you still need community while using this tool, so the resources in the description are still going to be very helpful for you. Are you able to be honest with yourself and correctly identify your emotions? One of the hardest aspects of all of this, like mental health, self-therapy, regular therapy, all of it, was being honest with myself about how I felt and what I was going through and what I needed. Something I have learned about myself along the way, specifically using self-therapy, is that I am very good at lying to myself. So good at lying to myself that I don't even know that I'm lying to myself. I used to convince myself that I was not feeling a negative emotion, that I was fine, or that I was even happy. And it would not be until weeks or sometimes months, and in some very intense cases, years later, that I would discover that I was pissed or really hurt or sad or traumatized. These real emotions would come to the surface, and some of that happened in therapy, but a lot of that happened in self-therapy. So when I started doing self-therapy, I had to consistently remind myself to be honest about my emotions and what I was feeling. To be honest with yourself about what you're feeling, you have to be able to identify your emotions, give them their proper labels, correctly identify where they're coming from, and correctly identify if they are appropriate for the situation at hand. The final thing I would like to talk about today is that you deserve to go at your own pace. Sometimes trauma takes a while to manifest, and sometimes it doesn't. Whether you are trying to heal something that happened many years ago, something that happened over the course of many years, or something that happened yesterday, healing is something that is going to take time. And learning to heal will take time as well. How much time is completely up to you, and you are in control of setting the pace. And remember, this is a lifelong journey of self. If you're ready to use the tool, wonderful. If you're not ready to use the tool, then that's wonderful too. Knowing yourself is half the battle with any therapeutic healing and growth journey. So knowing if you are or are not ready is a really great start. For those of you who are ready to start, we will continue to talk about ways that you can utilize self-therapy. And for those of you who aren't, maybe by the time this series is over, you might be a little closer to being ready. The material is still here, and I would still love it if you came along with us. The material will always be here, and I would still love it if you came along with us. I'm incredibly grateful that you've taken the time to listen, and I really hope this helps. If you use the journal prompts and you end up doing some journaling, don't tell me what you journaled about. I think that when we journal, that's a very private thing. That's something that is just for us as individuals. But please let me know if it helped. I would love to have your feedback and for us to be able to communicate around those. I also thought maybe I could start closing off the episodes with a quote that has to do with the series. So today's quote is from Tori Amos. Healing takes courage, and we all have courage, even if we have to dig a little to find it. See you next week.